Hello and welcome to another day on Cornwall Pocket Farm. My name is Jenny and today we're talking about the velvet monstrosity. This is the final piece in my Art Deco series, the sort of the clothes and outfits that I created for my weekend away in Napier, the Art Deco festival, the winter festival. This dress originally came from the charity shop. I bought it for $7 on the last chance rail at one of our local charity shops. And I bought it really more as sort of raw materials because it was a double XL. It was strange. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. I'm not even quite sure how you were supposed to wear it, but what I saw essentially was a large amount of black velvet, a bit of sparkle and a sort of a 1920s fringe, which was quite nice actually. I also then went to a Fabric-a-brac de-stash event and managed to pick up a bunch of trims for very, very good prices. So I added some trims onto the dress, took away some of the dodgier element, shall we say, and transformed it into something that I felt was grand ball ready. Now, as always, there were problems. In the making of this, I had endless dramas with the fringe, as you will see during this video. And then to even right up to the last minute, I was scrambling to try and fix that problem. Now, unlike the other outfits that I made for this weekend, this was always going to be a costume, based basically on the fabric, because the fabric was a really cheap synthetic sort of velvet. And so really whatever I did with trims or however I refashioned it, I really couldn't get away from the nature of the fabric of the dress, and I knew it was something I was not going to wear again. So I had sort of total license really to really go crazy and do whatever I wanted and just sort of make it work. So that's what I did. I enlisted the help of my daughter, who was brilliant actually, absolutely brilliant. We had a huge amount of fun getting it to work, figuring out the problems, and yeah, just playing around dress up really. It was great fun. And the synthetic fabric actually became more of an issue when I actually entered the venue, because the synthetic velvet mixed with the synthetic carpet created a really big static problem, which wasn't there at any other time. Not wandering around my house, not in the hotel, not going to the event, nothing like that. Even rubbing up against the inside of my coat, no static. I hit the event centre and the carpet basically just created this static. So that was not brilliant. So when I was actually sat at the table eating the meal and talking and whatnot, it was a little more skin tight than I'd first imagined. However, thankfully, once I hit the dance floor, it magically disappeared, because then I was on sort of, well, dance floor boards, I suppose. So it wasn't static on the dance floor, which was great. So it worked beautifully on the dance floor, but as soon as I crossed from the dance floor back to my table, I could just feel it sucking in again. So have any of you ever experienced that really strange phenomenon where basically the fabric reacts with something in your environment and then all of a sudden you've got this static problem? I really wasn't anticipating that. It hadn't crossed my mind, because if you remember with the 1 hour dress make, that was last week's video, I'll put a link up here. If you remember last week, I knew that 1 hour dress was causing static. When I put it on, I thought, oh, it's clinging to my legs a little bit, there's a problem here, so I made a lining. But this dress, that was not the case. It was only literally when I hit the venue. So that was a bit of an interesting times, but another reason that I was not going to keep this dress. So it has actually since gone back to the charity shop, but I like to think in a much better state than when I bought it. So hopefully they'll sell it on and somebody else will take it and wear it for an event of their own. The headband, which I made for the event, I was so pleased with it, and I had several comments on it actually, how nice it looked. It sparkled beautifully under the lights and I felt very elegant and very Phryne Fisher. It was really wonderful. So that, I'll show you how I put that together, because that was such a simple make. And well, basically it was hardly a make, it was a construction of 2 items, but I have kept those of course and added it to my stash of bling, my stash of diamonds for future fabulosity. So sit back and enjoy this transformation from a $7 charity shop velvet monstrosity into what I like to think is quite an elegant Art Deco 1920s grand ball ready outfit. And of course, please like, subscribe, click the bell, comment, tell me, have you ever had those experiences with static? Have you got any advice? So it doesn't happen again. I do love to hear all of your comments and all of your experiences with similar sort of adventures, shall we say. And here we have it on. There's loads of room. And yeah, I'm not quite sure if it's supposed to be down like that or whether... Is it supposed to be up like this? I don't know. What do you think? So, time for the velvet monstrosity. Let's get it out of its project bag. What do we have? We have... This is the really cheap sort of ugly looking fabric. There's a bit of that. That was the bow. So I've kept that bit. There is the fringe, so it's a really nice, long, quite detailed fringe. The problem is that it's unravelling, so I have to figure out if it's possible to sort of seal the ends somehow. Well, first of all, I think I need to trim them all off to make them a bit even because some have unravelled a bit more than others. And then I'd probably just spend a fun time sort of like wafting them near a candle and trying to sort of seal the ends. That's the only plan I've got. I don't have any fray check or anything like that. I don't have time to go and get any. So that might be the option. I have the funny little bit that was the elastic headband. I have these bits which were sort of the bit at the bottom, the skirt piece. You know, there was the main body, then there was the cheap bit, which I've thrown away. It was all nylon-y and horrible. So I've got two little skirt bits, and then of course I have the main dress, which I have detached from the cheapy bit, which I've thrown away. So, now, it's sort of a weird bottom. So when you look, I don't know if you can see it, it's sort of like a curved bit, and then it was attached here. So there's sort of like a bump out on the sides, which I'm not sure what that was for. The neck is way too wide for me and is really going to fall off. So what I'm thinking is that maybe I can put some little straps sort of over the top here so that it could sort of drop off the shoulder but not drop off me, if you see what I mean. And the sleeves on this are rather nice. They've got that sort of dark glittery bit, and then again fringe, which is coming unravelled a little bit. Might need to see if I can do a similar treatment to that. Although what that's going to be, I don't know. I'll have to do some experimentation. So I would say that clearly I need to take some in down the side because it's way too wide. Then I also want to test if the length of it is enough that I could just attach these bits. Because if without the elastic, which is sort of gathering it up, could I just attach these bits to make it long enough with the fringe? I don't really want to use this, so that's out. But I've got those other nice pieces of trim that I got from Fabric-a-brac, which I'm going to play with and see what I can do. I think this sparkly, stretchy thing, that's also in the cheap rubbish pile, but I kept them just in case I needed a bit of something. I suppose I could, I wonder if that would make straps. That might make straps over the top. That's a thought. So the trims that I've got are, if you remember, this one which has got the sort of the ribbon but then the beading on the edge. I have the plain black ribbon. I've got this trim, which is sort of sequiny like the top. It could go at the bottom, but it could also sort of go in between as like a sheer panel. And then I have this little sort of buckle, catch, button type affair. So those are my raw materials. I really don't want to use this cheap stuff, so that's going over there, and I need to figure out how to seal my trim from fraying and getting any smaller. So those are my raw materials. I'm pretty sure I can do something with it. Oh no, and of course there's this bit of stretchy sequinedy stuff which could do something. That's not, I mean, it looked a bit cheap in the headband, but I think as a material by itself it's not too bad, and it does match the sequins on the neckline, so that can stay as materials. So, but there is a bit of a change of plan because I've just spoken to my daughter and she's coming over this evening. So I think it's going to be better if we have the two of us on it tomorrow. So really just for the ideation, you know, she can hold things and add things and we can hold things in and try and figure out what to do. Now I got this the other day, which is a headband, a diamanté headband. And I thought, oh yeah, that could work because I could clip something to it. Well, in the same charity shop, would you believe, I found this amazing brooch. Beautiful diamanté brooch. Now it is missing a stone, it's got a couple of the leaves are missing on the brooch, but it doesn't matter. What I'm intending to do is actually pin that onto this headband. I've tried it out, it looks pretty good. Okay, so we are making progress. We have the 1 hour petticoat is complete. So that can be ticked off, yay! So that's nice. So the 1 hour dress now is pretty much complete. I've hemmed the petticoat as well, so the only thing I need to do there is hand stitching. Today is the velvet monstrosity because I haven't even started that. It's Sunday today and I have my daughter here, which is great. So she's actually going to be a mannequin for me, put it on, and then we're going to try and add and change and put things on and try and figure out what we're going to do. The next job after that is to deal with the fringe, because the fringe is all unraveled to different lengths, so I'm going to cut it off and try and make it even, but then we need to seal the ends somehow. Now the plan we've come up with is to try using a soldering iron. I've got a soldering iron in the shed, and we're going to try just touching the end onto the soldering iron and sealing the ends. The only other thing I have is some PVA wood glue, which I was sort of thinking maybe I could paint on. That's another option. I might do a little bit of testing, but I haven't got anything to test it on. So yeah, well, we're just trial and error, I think, really, until we find something that works. I have persuaded my daughter to put it on for me. This is, yes, this is the top piece without all the skirt and everything. So as you can see, it comes down to just above the knees. Oh, it is a delight. But anyway, very, very kindly, she has agreed to be my mannequin so I can pin and tweak and try and do something with it. Oh my God. Oh my Lord, we are having such fun. It's like decorating a birthday cake. We have trims and fringes, and also Maggie is absolutely bemused. But we're still, it's just, it's a work in progress, but we're getting there. Something fabulous will come out of this. Okay, this is what we think we're going with. I'm reusing the headband. This is the stretchy headband to make straps, because these will just come off, hang off the arm. Then I'm taking, there's a massive chunk taken out, both sides, out of the sides of the garment. And then coming down, basically, I'm just going to put this little trim on where the join is. This is where the join from the bodice to the bodice, the bag on the top, basically. And then this bit of trim will join on, and then the fringe, excuse me, Maggie, Maggie's in the way. She's been very helpful. Then the fringe, which comes down, which dangles a little bit lower than the velvet. So the velvet, I'm just going to attach at the sides, not gather anything. Well, the top might gather into the bottom a little bit. But anyway, detail, detail, detail. This is the bottom piece we're going with. I think the bling sort of brings the bling from the top down. The fringe matches. And I think in the dark, that'll be fabulous. And then we're not wearing the socks. The socks are not coming too. But I think we've got movement there. I like that. Well, we've done a bit of an experiment and the soldering iron method doesn't work. I don't think this is nylon. We've also tried putting it through a flame, and again it just turned a bit brown. It didn't seal the ends. So what we reverted to is some PVA glue that I had, and we're just going to paint the ends with that. It dries clear, so hopefully that should work. So the next job is to try and trim it so that it's even. So this is the problem I have at the moment. All of the fringe is a very wonky length. So I am going to trim it to try and even it up just a little bit. This may or may not work. We have a lot of fringe on the floor now, but I think that is a little bit better. It'll still be uneven, but it's better. And it is, after all, just a costume. This is quite a hatchet job, but I have just chopped off masses from the sides. I basically decided to come in.
What we could do, put it.
I'm not filming. So I have sort of brought it in quite a bit and then come down and coming out to the full width at the bottom because I want to gather the bottom into the skirt. Now I have the two bits that came off before that were all sort of gathered in and things. I've actually seamed those so that we now have a velvet tube. It's come out at a sort of a width that I think I can walk and dance quite comfortably, and the top part will sort of gather into this bit. I will just try this, pin it on and try that to make sure that I don't need to take it any smaller, but I think that should work. So that's good, and I have taken in a massive chunk on the sides at the top. You can't see probably, but basically I've taken in a massive chunk here, come in here and then gone out flared. So now when I pop it on, it doesn't look so enormous. I'm basically making this top so that it's going to be an off the shoulder job, and then we're going to have straps across here. So this just sort of drapes off my shoulder, and then that sort of comes in and then will flare out. That's the general idea anyway. It's not beautiful. I'm just hacking bits off really. I don't even think I need to overlock. It's like it's a knit. It's not fraying. It's just extra steps I don't need to do really. So anyway, my daughter is brilliantly outside doing all of this fringing and gluing all the fringing, which we've got a bit of a technique now, so it's not, she's figured out a technique now so that it's pretty quick. So quick, relative sense. Here we go, this is the technique. So they're all taped out on a bit of tin foil, glue is applied. Once they have gone mostly dry, a bit tacky, the ends get rolled between the fingers and then they go into this pile. Now this section now is being put out on tape. And it's only taken us, how many hours? 3?
3, 4.
What fun! And then they peel off the tin foil quite easily, but the key thing is to keep them dry, to get them dry, because they stick together much more than they stick to the tin foil. So as long as they're dry on the tin foil, we can pull them off. So she's doing one end, then she's moving to the other end. I think she's got the middle section to go, but yeah, it's a bit of a technique, but it does work much quicker than the way we were doing before, which was like one individual strand at a time, which would take years. Now I still need to do the fringing on the sleeve. This doesn't seem to be fraying quite as much, but I do still want to do that, so I'll probably be doing that myself in the evenings, but now she has the technique, I'm just going to nick it and do that on the sleeves. Right, so the next thing I think to do is maybe to mock up the skirt on the base of this and see if it comes in enough, because I can always make the skirt narrower if I need to. It's almost like a cocoon shape, so it sort of comes down and then sort of all gathers into a smaller tube. The smaller tube will have the fringe on it, and then we'll have, oops, falling over, and then we'll have this sparkle just covering the join, and this also brings the sparkle from the top down to the bottom, so that's rather nice. And then the fringe will come down on the velvet and then hang over the velvet just a little bit so you can sort of see the fringe. We did try it with the fringe completely off the skirt, but it just looked too cartoon, whereas I think if we've got most of it on the velvet and then there's just a little bit off, it looks quite cool. Right, that's the plan at the moment. Let me Well, first of all, I should probably just gather this up and then I can put it on the base and see how that looks. So we're really making progress now. I've taken the headband that I round here. It's got the same sequins on as the trim around the neck. So I've taken that headband, I've just chopped it in half. And basically we're making the straps out of that. Now I'm not brave enough to put this through my machine because there are so many sequins here and even just getting a pin through is difficult. So I'm just gonna like hand stitch madly and sort of attach it that way. It's a costume. Hopefully it'll stay tacked and stay on. I should do lots and lots of stitches to make sure that it will. But yeah, I'm really pleased. I've just put it on and I think it's really coming together nicely actually. I'm really pleased with the way it's looking. But I've sort of basically just pinned the skirt on, but I'm going to have to unpin it to get the trim in there. My daughter is still working away with the fringe, so as soon as the fringe is glued and dried and what have you, I can put that back on, and that should be, fingers crossed, it should be the right length exactly because it came off the bottom piece that's now on the bottom still, so that should work. We have the straps are now on and I have attached the bottom with the sparkly trim in between, just waiting for the fringe to have its final gluing, and then I shall just basically machine that on as well. It's looking a lot different than it did. I think a little bit more elegant than it did, and hopefully good enough for a ball. What we found is that the glue leaves a little bit of sort of light coloured residue on the fringe, so here you can sort of see it. So I'm not really very happy with that. Can you see this? I mean, maybe you can, you possibly can. It leaves just a little bit of a sort of a whitish residue. I mean, it may not show on my skin, but I can see it. I don't know. On the bottom, you don't see it. It's all flapping around. It's a long way down. So that is fine. But on the top, it's not working. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I have actually tracked down some fray check, which is a bus ride away, and I might have to do it. I think maybe tomorrow morning I might bomb over and try and get some of that. And then what I might do is here is just trim off the bit where I've sort of done the glue and maybe try the fray check. I don't know. I can't leave it as it is, because as you can, I don't know, can you see that? It's really sort of unraveling. So it's really unraveling. It's not stable at all. Fray check is $15. I suppose if I could use it for other things, but I've never had the need for it before. It's frustrating, but I don't want to go to this ball and find that all the fringe is unravelling. It's going to be a real pain in the bum. So I think I might have to try and bomb over there tomorrow, which means, not that I have time for that, but that means that I have to try and finish all the little jobs today. So this morning I've been to buy the fray check. I'm really hoping that this is going to work. It was called Fray Stopper. But it's got a little point on the end, and I literally need to touch the end of every single piece of fringe. So it's not any easier than using the glue we were using before, but I'm just hoping this is going to do it without the sort of the discoloration on the end. Okay, so that's that. Where the side is that I've done the other sort of glue and I've got discoloration, I think I might just trim that off. I'm just going to trim off the majority of it. It will make it a little bit shorter, but I don't think you'll really see it moving around, whatever. The other thought I'd had as well is to maybe use this lace like I've done further down and sort of put it under the fringe to add a little bit more interest there. That's another thing I might try. I have these things left over as well. I'm just wondering where I can put them. yeah, I'll see if I can find a home for these because they're leftover. They came off this. They're quite pretty little beaded and sequined things. So I'll see if I can find something to do with this because all the hair adornment and everything is like full diamanté. So it's all sort of silvery. Everything on the dress is more like a sort of a glittery black, you know, like this lace. It's like black with a sort of a shininess to it. There isn't any sort of silver on the dress. So I don't know, I might figure out what's something to do with that. But the first thing I think on this is to put on the fringe on the bottom because that's good to go. And then I think I need to trim off the glue on this fringe and then just spend hours and hours and hours putting this little phrase dropper on each end of the fringe. It's going to take forever. I did actually have another idea which I thought long and hard about because I wondered whether I could just spray it with hairspray. I thought that might be an option, but I don't own any hairspray, you know, hair. And so I was going to have to buy that as well. And so I went into the local shopping area where I found that they had this. Went into the chemist and the hairspray was $16. So I thought, oh, I'm not gaining anything. I might as well use the stuff that is sort of designed to do the job, even though it's going to be tedious. Anyway, so that's where I'm at with this dress and the next things that I need to do. Let's have a little look on the board. Where are we? Bearing in mind, I've got one day to go. We're leaving tomorrow. Where are we on the board? Well, I have done the coat sleeve alterations, so that is completely done and off the board. The headband for the velvet make, that is complete because essentially I'm just going to use that brooch on top of the diamanté headband, and the brooch, because the diamanté sort of sticks out, the brooch actually just sort of attaches without doing anything. I just literally have to put the thing around the back and do it up and it stays. So headband for the velvet make, that's done, that's complete because that's a very easy make. The headband for the flapper dress, that's what I'm just doing now, and the velvet dress make, we've still got a bit to do. And of course I decided that these two were not happening, it was just a step too far, a little delusional, and of course I haven't got there. So I'm actually putting these as a big fat no, big fat crosses. We're not even attempting that, well certainly not with one day to go. So I have the headband to do, which I'm going to do now, and then the velvet dress to complete. I'll probably be sticking bits of glue on the fringe late into this evening because it still has to dry for tomorrow to get packed. I don't want to pack it up and take it out and find it's stuck itself to everything else, so it needs to be properly dry before I put it in the suitcase. So once again, we are gluing the little ends of the fringes. I mean, I've done a few, they seem to be not unravelling. I'm hoping they're not sticking together. They seem to be, yeah. They seem to be not unravelling, but they sort of don't look glued, which I suppose is the point. But I will need to just trim the ends where they have ravelled. But they said to actually do the spray check first and then trim the ends. Well, obviously not too high up, otherwise you'll get back to where you started. But yeah, I'm just dabbing the little ends with the stuff, squeezing the stuff. Hopefully it's going to work. What I have decided to do is add in some little trim into the sleeve underneath, because hey, it's the 1920s and what they were all about was just more trim, more sequins, more feathers, more everything. So that's what I'm doing, adding a bit more, and I think that will actually hide some of the ends a little bit as well, because you've got all the sparkly and the lace happening as well. It just distracts the eye a little. That's what I'm going with anyway. Right, well, this velvet monstrosity has turned out to be monstrous in multiple ways. So the fringe is very monstrous, but hey, I think it should look quite bling, I think, in the end. So I'll get on with this, and hopefully the next thing you'll see will maybe be a reveal. Well, that's it. Clear table. I don't think you see there is nothing on my table anymore. Let us check it off the board. So, the velvet monstrosity. I finished gluing the fringes last night and then I did the final hand sewing this morning while I was out knitting. But that is complete and ready to go, so we can cross that one off. So Now, of course, the corduroy trousers and the braces we had decided were on the delusional list and weren't even on this list anymore, but I'm pretty pleased to have finished all of these projects, and it still is 10 projects because I added the 1 hour petticoat, the husband's trousers, and also the coat sleeves. But I found the Poirot headband, so I didn't need to make that, and of course these two projects was a stretch too far, as we sort of knew they would be at the beginning. And to be honest, I always think a list is not really a proper list unless you have things left over when you've run out of time. Or my lists always work like that. I'm pretty pleased with what I've achieved in the it's been mad, 2 weeks, mad, but I have it all done. So you will probably have seen various reveals on the earlier videos. I think that's how I'm going to cut it and edit it, but who knows? But I'm pretty pleased with that and happy with all of my outfits for my weekend in Napier. Now we have to go and get on the plane in about 2 hours. So yeah, I better go and finish packing.